But it's going to be harder,
I just think
right?
rating's going to suck without it. Like they can't make good, high quality, really tight rating without DPS meters. It's an actual impossibility. So without it, then whatever. Like your example of beating on the tank for 30 seconds to get your time to kill. Well, I know lots of people that can parse in the top 5% of their class in Star Wars: The Old Republic if they beat on a dummy, but you put them in a fight and they suck ass and they can't do anything. So without a real time specific DPS meter, I think rating is going to suck. It's not going to be tight. It's going to be very loose. We're going to have many times over the DPS required to kill the boss. It's going to be just, can you do the mechanics? And there's not going to be like a burst mechanic where it takes all 5 or 8 or how many ever DPS in your group operating at the most maximum level in order to pass that DPS check. And that sucks for me because I'm a hardcore raider and that I enjoyed that aspect of it. But if you're not going to have really tight raids, who gives a crap about DPS?
Well, and what about the raid scaling? I mean, the raids are going to scale as you go
they're going to
through.
get more difficult, but they're not going to be tight. Like I have never seen an MMO that doesn't have DPS meters. I've actually never seen an action combat MMO that has tight rating. It's all very loose.
Yeah.
Everything is, there's lots of reses. You can raise your guy 5,000 times in a fight. And, like I said, the maximum DPS output of the group is usually 2 or 3 times higher than it is to beat the enraged timer and all those sorts of things because you can't measure your DPS. So you have to keep it loose like that.
And I on it, so like this maybe I am wrong here, but I kind of think Steven isn't necessarily going for that hardcore. So what I call not. Mythic rating within World of Warcraft is a mini game within the game. I love Mythic. I love it. I love what you're talking about. That min-maxing, figuring out. Like I love it. I don't think this game is going for that. With the open world dungeons and all of that, like you're more looking for efficiency. You're looking to get clear content quickly, get as much loot as you can, and get back to safety. Like that to me is the idea of the game. And like you're sitting there farming this raid and you're constantly like, okay, when is someone going to figure out how long we've been down here, how much we have on us, and going to come after us? Like, so there's all I think the intrigue of this game is a lot more than that, and they may have a few that we got that little hint in the AMA about divine nodes potentially having some kind of labyrinth under them with the hardest PvE content in it. We still don't know what that's going to be. We don't know if there's going to be PvP available down there, and it's possible they will add in something like that, but it just doesn't seem like that's what they're trying to do with this game.
I agree with you. So as I started to research this game and look into it and look into all the systems and look into the things that they wanted to do, and all that stuff, I started going, okay, rating's not going to be like it's going to be, the game's going to have rating, but it's not going to have rating in the way that I want it or not even necessarily want it, just kind of am used to or expecting.
Yes.
And so I started getting a little bit disappointed. And then I kind of had like an epiphany moment. This was maybe 4 or 5 months ago where I started to realize that even though there was no rating, or not rating like I wanted, I still desperately wanted to play this game, and I was excited to play this game, and I was thinking about all the different things I'm going to be doing in game that don't have anything to do with rating, and it made me realize that rating, and in particular like the hardcore rating and these instanced PvPs, the arena style and the battleground style that they have and all that stuff is stand-in for real content. That is, we don't want to have to think about what to give our players to do at in-game to keep them logging in and playing every day, and think about all these crazy systems that Steven has clearly spent a very long time considering and trying to come up with all the different ways it might work and might not work, and coming up with all this stuff. They don't want to do that work, so they're like, hey, let's put some more health on this boss. And that's in-game. I think it's actually a stand-in for real content, and so I actually feel like even though I'm expecting real rating, I'm used to real rating, when the game launches, you're going to be like, I don't have time to go log in on every Wednesday night, 8:00 to do my raid because my node's being sieged.
Yes.
Because that caravan needs to be protected. Because my node needs 5,000 more wood to level up, whatever it is. That's real content.
And that's the other thing too, is he's not like, if you want that experience of hardcore rating, Steven doesn't need to make a game for that. The game's already there. WoW does it really well. I'm like most of the time, obviously. SWTOR has pretty good PvE hardcore raids. I haven't played much Final Fantasy or much ESO. I played a little ESO on launch, but I know both of those games have amazing end game rating. If players want that, that's what they'll go play. I think people need to drop their expectations or their projections of what they're used to and what they want in a game, and just be like, this is the way this game is going to be. Like, honestly, you just don't really need DPS meters when everything is so fluid, when a lot of your content is based around like PvP and trying to, guard yourself against other people coming in, and like the amount of stuff that's going on. Like, it's a DPS meter isn't going to give you that much. Like, yeah, maybe you have a squad holding back on the boss you're fighting to keep the enemies at bay, right? Well, now suddenly their DPS isn't as good, or like there's so many ways that like you may end up not doing optimal DPS because you're helping the group or the guild in some other way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it incentivizes that community, guild first, node first, whatever, approach you have to it, that I'm doing this for my guild. I'm doing this for my node. And that's something that's been lost over the years. And you see it in those games like WoW and SWTOR, where it's people are just loot hungry. You know what I mean? And there's so much more to a good game than just loot drops. And like, yes, that is how your representation of yourself being your character in the game. That's how you make it more powerful. But the reality is, it even goes to what Bard was saying about the Ashes content creator community. As the community grows, as the guild grows, everybody within it grows. You might not be a part of the team that gets the first kill, but if you're in a good guild, you will eventually get the kill. And it will, what benefits the guild should benefit everybody within it. Now you're going to have your asshole GMs, you're going to have your asshole guilds where it's just, where it's just, me and my 20 friends, that's it. Those are the only people getting loot. The rest of you are here to serve us, bow to me. But, having, and the realization that you had, Xillin, was the exact same. I was smirking over here because I'm like, dude, him and I are just like on the same wavelength from where we came to what we're expecting out of this. And the reality is exactly what you said. But it's not going to be those other games. And so I had to temper my expectations a little bit and go, okay, Ashes is not my typical MMORPG. But you know what the reality I came to is I don't enjoy playing the typical MMORPG anymore.
Yeah.
Preach.
So I'm going to go ahead and get out of my own head, get out of my own way, allow myself to experience something new, and hopefully find enjoyment in it, because everything about the game sounds exciting. So just because the PvE content isn't the exact same way that I've experienced it in the past, am I going to allow myself to not have fun in a game that is potentially going to be the best game I've ever played? Like, so it's just, it's rearranging the way that you typically look at PvE content. And that doesn't mean you don't give feedback. That doesn't mean you don't try to, tool it in a direction that you would prefer. But the reality is Steven already has his vision. And, we're here to kind of make sure that all of that is working well. We're not necessarily here to change his vision. For example, New World, they changed their vision. And so I don't see that happening with Ashes. And so it's actually nice. I mean, I've been in a lot of different alpha testing. It's nice to know that I'm only giving feedback on the systems that exist and how they are, and not necessarily what they should be reiterated to completely. I'm not giving feedback on an overhaul. I'm giving feedback on what the system is. And from a testing perspective, and somebody who's given feedback about overhaul stuff for the vast majority of his testing experience, it's actually really nice to go, oh, this is just what's intended. Okay, here's some feedback on this. Here's some pros and cons. Mm-hmm. Take it as you will and walk away. And just try to accept and try to trust and know that, okay, hopefully the game goes in a good direction. And you got to get out of your own way sometimes.
Yep. That's exactly right.